All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl here, broadcasting live from beautiful Southwest Georgia, and I'm here with my good friends, excuse me, Christina, Dan, Donna, and Catherine, and I'm not sure if Sandy or Danielle's going to join us yet this morning. They may, but Jason had something else going on, so he couldn't join us. But for those of you who are brand new to our Hangout, every week we get on here and we study different personal development books, and we talk about different principles to help you be more successful in your life and in business and in your relationships, whatever we happen to talk about at the time. We just share our thoughts on the different chapters that we're reading and whatever comes to our mind. So for those of you who are watching, you can, if you would like to comment and add to our discussion, meet us on our Google Plus event page, which is SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. If you have found this video on my personal profile page on Google Plus or on Facebook or something like that, some other place, and you go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com, that takes you to our main event page where I can see your comments while we are doing this meeting. If you comment elsewhere, I may not see the comment. If you're watching via mobile and you're on YouTube, I will be watching for comments under the video as well. But otherwise, everybody else jump to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That way we can connect with you and add your thoughts to our conversation as well. But right now, we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. And while we're doing that, go ahead and leave a comment on our event page. Tell us who you are and where you're hanging out from. And then we will get started with our discussion after that. Go ahead and jump out, anybody.
Morning, everybody. This is Danielle DeLyons out in Anaheim, California. Excited to be here with everybody today. It's a great sunny day, and really love this chapter, so excited to talk about it.
Hello, everybody. Christina Irvin here. I'm in Northeast Tennessee. I know, I say it every week, but I love this chapter, too, because I always use questions to help the conversation move forward. So I'm excited about it and looking forward to talking to everybody today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Smith. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me? Okay, good deal. I'm Dan Smith. I'm from Boise, Idaho. Quite frankly, I don't know what the weather's out today. I think it's going to rain today, but I'm not sure. So anyways, welcome, everyone.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Clement. I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, and it's looking pretty good out there to me. So thank you for joining us. I look forward to this discussion. It's a fun one.
Good morning, Donna Allen, Raleigh, North Carolina. Been out listening to the birds this morning. Works for me.
Okay, guys, sorry for that little bit of a delay. I was trying to switch from window to window. My computer's acting a little bit slow, so if it seems like I'm lagging, then somebody else just jump out and start talking. That way we don't, it's no fun when it works out that way. Uh-oh, I got a page unresponsive thing. Hold on a second. I better kill that page there. I don't know what's going on. I hope I don't lose it. Uh-oh, computer, come on, straighten up. You're frozen up, but I can still see. I mean, I can see you. You're frozen, but I can still hear you. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Sorry, guys. A little bit of computer slowdown there. Let me get the... okay, first, before I do that, let me go ahead and just tell you what book we're studying, since I didn't remember to say that at the beginning. We're studying the book How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age by Dale Carnegie. And we are in section 4, I believe. I keep forgetting what the section number is because I don't look back. Okay, so part 4, chapter 4 of part 4, which is ask questions instead of giving direct orders. And but before we jump into the conversation, or actually I'll let you guys start the conversation while I'm doing a couple more things in the background here, because I need to try and get that YouTube page back open so I can watch for comments there. But let's just start the conversation with why do you think questions are more powerful than direct orders? We'll just start there. How's that sound? What are your thoughts on that?
In general, I mean, it's just like we've said in previous weeks. People don't like to be told what to do. They don't like to feel like they're being chastised or criticized. And so when you come at somebody with being told what to do or whatever, their resistance is going to be up higher. But when you ask them a question, you're actually engaging them and sort of, in one way, sort of edifying indirectly that it's okay for them to have an opinion. It's okay for them to express their opinion and provide that exchange back and forth. Not to mention, when you ask a question, it kind of forces them to think about, what's being asked. It forces them to really acknowledge whether or not they are doing that thing that you're asking about, and how they could maybe do something different or feel differently about it, respond differently about it. It gives them accountability and ownership. And it's easier to swallow that way than it is when somebody's wagging their finger at them. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll jump out. That story about the ship captain and a ship and a new captain on the ship, and he comes in and he interviews there. So I think it's 310 people, and he is interviewing 5 people a day and getting their opinion. And what actually happens is that as people rise up through the ranks, they kind of lose touch with the people that are the swabbies or whatever, the people down there at the bottom, and they think they know what's going on, but they don't necessarily always know what's going on. But the people who are actually out there doing the work, they're the people that are there thinking about that all day long, thinking about how much they hate what they're doing or whatever, and they're looking for better ways. And so when the ship captain came to all these different sailors and asked them, what's your opinion? What do you think about, all this different stuff? Well, those people gave him all these fantastic suggestions that, would save time and save a lot of just plain grunt work that was being done. And so when they was able to institute some of those things, that the captain of that ship actually gave those people what they wanted. A lot of those people were there to for the only reason why they joined the Navy, and I got an ex-brother-in-law that was that way. He joined the Navy. The only reason why he joined it was to get a paid education, because he couldn't afford an education. And so that's what the story talks about, is a lot of these people were there for education purposes. And so the captain was able to set up some long-distance correspondence types things, and then keep those people in touch with their families. So in other words, through giving them what they wanted, he was able to raise the morale of the ship, and through listening to them, by asking them questions, they was able to figure out things that they could do to save time, and it was just better for everyone. So just the fact that here's a captain, somebody who was in charge, that listened. So hopefully I was unmuted through all that. So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah, it was such a great story, and I like what he also said, that he wanted to link their goals. He says, so that they would see my priority of improving the Benefield as an opportunity for them to apply their talents and give their jobs a real purpose. And that kind of goes along with your thoughts, Dan, that a lot of these people really didn't have skills, and it gave a chance for them to recognize in themselves that they did, and build that morale. And the end results, I thought, were pretty amazing. That it said that it, because of how he approached the situation, it gave some of the highest testing rankings the Navy had ever seen. So just that little shift, he could have come on board and barked orders. And even as parents, I was thinking about that. Like, I can remember when my kids were younger, I could bark out orders because I wanted the house cleaned and things done during the day, or on the weekends and things. But when I stopped barking the orders and asking questions to get them participating because they saw a need. And don't you like living in a clean house and things like that? Don't you like it when mom makes you good meals because there's clean dishes, or however you go about it? It's the same thing, you know, it doesn't change as adults or children. It's in that process of asking questions.
You bring up actually a really good point too, Danielle, to asking questions and the benefit of asking questions, because what that captain, the story about that captain and what you were sharing with your kids, is it sort of helps them get in and be part of the team. They have a vested interest in the success of things and how things work and moving forward. That partnership becomes stronger in that way. That relationship does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I liked what you said about the accountability of ownership when you're talking to people about, you're asking them questions, trying to get their point of view, and then that helps them, have that accountability for that decision and ownership of that decision. I thought that was a great point you made at the beginning, Christina. And then when you were talking about linking their goals, Danielle, that was brilliant. I mean, I think that's kind of a big key right there, is to really get to know the person. And the best way to get to know somebody, obviously, is through questions. You can't just assume that you know everything just because, maybe whatever your circumstances are. It's not the same. Everybody is different. And even if you have similar circumstances, there are still going to be those very differences. And so asking the questions to get an idea of what their true core desires are can make a huge difference. And Danielle, I love how you talk about your family. I always love talking about my family, right? Because I'm not the perfect mom. I will admit that. There've been a lot of mistakes that I've made, but there's been a lot of things that I've done that have been right and that have just worked really, really well. And that whole questioning thing is, that's been a part of it too. It's just asking the right questions to get them to take responsibility for their own situation when they're kids, because kids, nobody likes being ordered around. And I think that when we talk about kids, it can carry forward into every relationship in our lives, because we all have experienced being a kid. And I think most of us can probably agree that our parents pretty much just ordered us around in one way or another. And so when we can talk about the question, asking them questions, or communicating in a different way, is that can that works well in every area of our lives. If we can communicate with our kids, we can communicate with anyone, right? That's my thought. And let me just welcome folks that are on our event page before we go forward in the conversation here. Welcome, Roger. Welcome. Let's see who else is hanging out here. I'm going to go down a little bit more. BG, welcome. It's Tim Sack. Hey, Sack. And let's see who else is. Okay, so that's everybody that's commenting. So hey, if you're hanging out with us, leave us a comment on the page. Let us know, where you are in the world and your thoughts on this. I think Roger just made a comment here real quick. Let me get back up to where it was. He says, excellent dialogue on one of the most important aspects of building trust and great communication. Awesome, Roger. What do you think is the main reason that questions work so much better than direct orders? Add your thoughts to the conversation. Okay, anybody else jump out?
I actually did have another thought too, and that is the story of the captain. Another wonderful nugget from that is that when you come into a situation new, especially if you're coming into it as one of the leaderships or the head situation, I don't even think it's especially. I really think it's just in general. When you come into a new situation, asking questions is a perfect opportunity, because you get to know people's temperaments. And you can understand their communication styles. When you're asking them questions, the way they respond to you, it's going to be a great indication of how they communicate, what their temperaments are. You can even tell if they have some natural trust issues that may be a little bit higher than most people. That's going to help you understand, maybe I need to take some little extra steps building this relationship a little bit more with this person. So it's a fantastic opportunity. I think everybody should ask questions when you're coming into a new situation, for sure.
Absolutely. That just reminded me, I've read a lot of John Maxwell's books, and they're about leadership. And that is a primary part of every time he would step into a new situation. He could come in and clean house and ask questions later. You know that one saying that's like, do it and then ask the questions later? No, it's just the opposite part of that, of asking the questions, because you're the new guy in a lot of situations. It just depends on what it is. But if you're the new head guy coming in, I can just imagine it's intimidating on both ends of it. And the best way to win friends over, exactly what this book about, and influence them in a positive direction, would to give them the opportunity to share with you their perspective. And how are you going to know what their perspective is if you don't ask the questions? And so that gives you the opportunity as well. You may have already come to a conclusion of what needs to change. And that's what they say in here. What if he had just come in and done that? But they don't, you can't even answer that question because he did do it right. It did turn out positive. And so this is a good measure maybe for somebody out there listening today, that in a job or any position that you're going into. I will say that I moved up the ranks when I was in corporate America because I asked a lot of questions. And I wanted to better understand things, and that kind of stirred the higher ups to say, oh wow, she's got new ideas, she's asking creative ways to make things better, and that also works in that behalf as well. It's a win-win situation, really.
Most definitely. And Christina, you brought up another great point in that when you ask questions, it just takes a few questions to come up with someone's color personality. That's something that we've spoken a lot about on this on our Hangouts. And so that helps you find out really how to communicate with them on a deeper level. And I don't think one of my personal experiences that I can share on this, where I found question asking so helpful, is when I was doing home health nursing. I was working with children on ventilators and stuff in their home, kids that had really severe health conditions. And there were a lot of nurses that had a tendency to go into a home and just kind of assess things and start barking out orders, and this is the way it's going to be, and blah, blah, blah. And when I went in, I mean, the first thing that I recognized when I started doing this type of nursing, or any kind of nursing really, is that the parents of these children know these children backwards, forwards, inside out. They know everything about them. They're with them 24 hours a day. And if there is an expert on that child, it's not their doctor, it's the parent. And so when I went in, I would always, ask questions about how they wanted things run. And sometimes if it didn't make sense to me in a medical, thinking about it medically, then I wouldn't just say, well, no, that's wrong, it has to be this way. I would ask, how is that working? And, try to feel it out and figure out why they are choosing to do it that way, because there's almost always a wonderful reason. So it's just so important, because you can alienate someone in seconds, and that person will never, people say they forgive and forget, and some people do, but most people don't. Most people, they kind of go with that whatever feeling you left them with after the first time you were with them, So just make sure that you leave them with the right one.
On that thought, Catherine just she just struck a nerve there. Alienate. I hope there's a teacher watching this at some point, because or a leader or what have you, because this was kind of like in the early years of like childhood development, growing up. I don't know if I've shared this story real quick, but there was a teacher. Oh my God, I asked questions. I was probably I was the one in the class that would ask a lot of questions in my childhood days. And she called me up to her desk. I thought she was calling me up to reward me or give me something nice, because I was showing forth effort. Oh my gosh, she gave me a lesson to say, don't ever ask that question again, or stop asking too many questions. And I says, wow, you know. Now as a child, that didn't go too well. I didn't quite understand that, and it's kind of like I went inside of myself. And then later on, I think I was doing something else, and she says, okay, we're going to have to, you and some more are going to have to write a theme. I don't know if somebody remember about themes or anything like that, but had to write a theme. I don't know how many times, on the board or on a paper or something. I don't remember, but I knew I had to write something over and over. It just, the mind, okay? Then another teacher, as I got older and moved up in, you know, the school system, God help our school system. I hope it's changed since then. But another teacher helped me. Because I went to her and she says, I says, can I ask you a question? She says, I was almost like I was scared to ask her this question. I had that fear, but because of what that other teacher had done to me. And again, I hope a teacher's watching this. But she said, Donna, don't ever stop. Don't ever stop asking questions. I said, I thought it was wrong to ask questions. You know, I was told it was, you know, I asked too many questions. She said, no, that's how you learn. So I've had, that was just one of my pet peeves that, you know, I've grew to learn how to do better in asking questions. That is how I learn. Okay, thank you.
Well, in general, that's how we all learn, right, Donna? And you made another good point, which, and I think you and Catherine both, with the perception that you give people, and what you may teach them indirectly. But that is another good way to sort of segue the conversation, I guess. If you do get off on the wrong stance with someone, asking questions, is particularly asking questions that will help them understand that you care about them, is a great way to kind of get back in their good graces, start to earn a little trust, and, you know, click restart on the relationship.
I'll jump out here. I've got another book that I've read over the years, and, well, I shouldn't say over the years, but I have been through. It's called High Efficiency Selling by Stephen Schiffman. And what he's talking about in this book, the very first chapter here is asking versus telling. I'm going to read just the first paragraph. It says, here's a promise. High efficiency selling is essentially cooperative, asking-oriented selling that benefits both the salesperson and the potential customers he or she meets. You know, and when I first started getting around sales when I was in my early 20s, I understood that the way that you sold somebody something was that you had to be so excited and you had to be bouncing off the walls, and I mean, that's what I was taught, basically, that you hyped yourself up to the point where this is so exciting, you can't live without this, you know, and you're just right up in people's face, you know. And what this guy calls that is low efficiency selling. You know, he says that, you know, he talks about salespeople that come into a business, for instance, and they've got a brochure, and they hand the customer a brochure, and then they just sit there and they read the brochure to the customer, and they don't ever ask them, what's your needs? It's just one size fits all, and this is my product, and you're probably going to want to buy it, you know. And that's basically what I was, you know, taught when I was, you know, in my early 20s, that you're there to force what you want that customer to buy, and you're there to, through your excitement, you know, and all that you're just there to get them interested because you're so excited, you know, rather than really sitting down and taking the time to interview that customer and say, what are your needs? You know, where are you at today? Where do you want to go? What do you want to accomplish? And what do you want to achieve when you get there? You know, how can I serve you? Rather than, if I can get you excited enough, you'll buy my deal, then I'll make some money and then I can go take a vacation or whatever, you know, which is backwards thinking. You know, you're there to service that person, to help them, you know, and hopefully what you have can meet their need. And if it can't, you know, and he even goes so far to recommend that if somebody else has something that can actually help that customer more than what you have, to even make a referral to somebody else, you know. And I know that kind of bends your mind. It goes, you know, against what we're taught, but this guy's been a sales trainer for over 25 years. So anyway, I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Let me share a couple of comments that folks have made on our event page here real quick. And first of all, welcome, Patty. I just saw that you joined us. Welcome, welcome. BJ says, I think even asking questions of yourself helps you to understand why you think one way or another, and then either strengthens your foundation or helps you to change it. Absolutely. That's a good point, BG, about asking, using questions even to, dive into your own situation and help yourself. That's powerful because, and that's what a lot of these personal development teachers talk about is, helping you become more aware of what you're doing in your life and in your situation, and the best way to become more aware of that is to ask yourself questions. So that's powerful. Let's see. Oops, hold on a second. Oh, Roger says, aren't asking questions and listening deeply keys to valuing the opinions and feelings of others? It seems like one deep need of nearly all human beings is to be valued and understood, doesn't it? Absolutely. Roger, that's exactly right. And hold on, let me get back over here where I can see you guys. I think at the beginning of the conversation when Christina was talking about connecting with people through questions, that was similar to what she was saying, and of course with the helping people become accountable to their own decisions by asking questions and connecting with those core goals and all of those different things. Okay, it's Tim Sack says asking questions lets people know that their opinions are important. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Let me scroll up. Okay. Okay. I wanted to let's see. I wanted to touch on something that somebody was saying about asking questions. Oh, Danielle, when you were talking about moving up in your job situation and about how, asking questions. And I think that the thing is with asking so many questions is it shows that you're so interested that it's like so many people just kind of only do the most or the least that is required of them to get by in their jobs. And my aunt was talking to me yesterday about an interview they were doing with somebody they were getting ready to hire, or they had just recently hired, and they're like, I just can't put my finger on something, but they went ahead and hired her anyway, and it turned out that she was totally one of those people that just only does the bare minimum to get by. And and you can tell when somebody is asking questions, they're more interested, that they actually have more care about what's going on. Sorry, I'm plugging my computer in here. So I think that's powerful, particularly in a career-like situation, is when you ask those questions. And oh, and Donna, when you're talking about asking questions in school, that's so sad when teachers kind of squash our natural tendencies of that's how you learn, and that's so important. What's interesting is my son was very similar to that when he was younger, and here's one of the mistakes that I made is because of the fact that he was asked so many questions, for me, on my side of it, I was getting frustrated because I didn't always come up with the right answer. You know how it is when you're a parent and you're like, you make a decision, you say this is how it's going to be, and then your kid asks you 10,000 questions, why, and you're like, you eventually run out of reasons why other than just because I said so, right? And so I think that I kind of discouraged him a little bit on the questions thing because it was, for me, I just didn't, this is before I realized how similar we were in our personalities, and once I did realize that, I was like, oh, okay, now I completely understand. I've got to communicate with him in a different way. But yeah, but I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought, so somebody else jump out there.
You said something too that triggered, and that goes into the next story with Bill Marriott and what he did with the Marriotts. That he got criticized. Actually, I thought that was pretty interesting that they said that he got criticized for listening to too many people and listening just as hard to frontline people as to senior executives, and he was constantly not only asking questions, but the other key part of really asking questions is being being an efficient, effective listener. Don't ask questions just to ask questions, but there is a purpose to those questions, and it's to really pay attention. And he was an example of that. His favorite question being, "What do you think?" And I like how it put it into perspective that this was his way of getting employees the permission to not seem like they were rocking the boat or causing problems if they criticized or said something, because then everybody's talking about them for saying something. But it gave them the opportunity to say, well, I see it kind of this way, and if we made this adjustment, this could be better. And because he gave that permission through the questions, there wasn't the mum effect that they talk about in here and some of the other aspects. It empowered those people, and it took away that other factor that you just mentioned, Samantha, about kind of holding back and not being, just getting by. It empowered them, and okay, so now I'm part of the team. I got to put in my 2 cents because I was asked to. Well, let me be a bigger part of it now. And all it does is kind of lift the whole environment. And, you know, anybody that's ever stayed at a Marriott, I love staying at Marriott. It's one of my favorite hotels actually to stay at. I love staying there. Why? It's because of that whole chain of events that have made, I don't know if you guys have ever stayed at one, but when you walk into like the Marriott suites or some of the, I'm trying to think of their other family of them where you can actually live there if you need to. I've done extended stay ones. The people there are so different than a lot of other places. And learning this today, that kind of put off a light bulb in my head that that's probably one of the reasons they're so good, is because they do take into consideration the highest guy on the chain to the lowest guy on the chain, and everybody's a part of it.
You bring up, we're on the same page today, Danielle, because I was just getting ready to go kind of with that thought process too. And then you made me think of another one to sort of kind of step off of what you were just saying, Danielle. One of the things that is particularly frustrating to me for those of us building home businesses and maybe in a business opportunity, one of the things that's most frustrating is feeling like is not being outside of the box, not thinking outside of the box. So yes, you're a part of a team, and yes, you're a part of a system, but because sometimes leaders tend to give that impression that it has to be done all the way they say and you can't veer off to the left or right a little bit, it kind of stunts the growth of you personally, your personal team, and then the greater team at large. And I wanted to point out the importance of, you know, the concepts of how to build the business and work the system. It's the same, but you can get to the end in many different ways. So as a leader, asking questions helps your team understand, like you were saying with the Marriotts, it's okay to think outside the box and apply some new things, even leveraging technology like the internet to grow your business. And as we're talking about how to win friends and influence people in the digital age, that is even more important to helping you grow your warm market, because most of the people that you interact with on the internet, you don't know. And the best way to get them to warm up, to become part of your warm market, is asking them questions. That's how they're going to open the door to you. People love to talk about themselves. And it helps you find where you have some commonalities to, again, sort of help you bridge that know, like, and trust factor. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up is the benefits of asking questions. And again, offline, online, it really doesn't matter. When it comes down to it, particularly if you're building your business on a small budget, you got to get some help from mentors and leaders who have the nuggets that you need. And one of the best ways to get those nuggets, to get that sort of free help so that you can become sort of a natural apprentice, if you will, is to ask questions, because that lets them know just how interested you are. And now I'm not talking about asking surface questions. I'm talking about asking those meaty questions that gets them to go off on rants and sort of provide these more in-depth concepts rather than how-to answers.
I think that's a good point. Oh, sorry, Catherine. Go ahead, jump out. Okay. No, I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? Oh, that's a great point, Christina, about asking your team questions to, be able to help them more effectively, and the same thing kind of goes along the lines of helping them market too, because of the fact that not everybody is going to be able to market the same way. And like you were saying, some leaders just say, teach this one way and that's the only way and you do it, or, otherwise you can't learn from me or whatever. And yet at the same time, when you've got to remember that everybody on your team is a different kind of personality. They're not all going to be super outgoing, or they're not all going to be comfortable in front of the camera, or they're not all going to be great conversationalists, or, those sorts of things. And when you get to know somebody a little bit, you can help them figure out the best marketing method for their particular personality. So I thought that's super. Questions are so powerful. I mean, just getting to know people and then helping them be able to connect with you better. Jump out, Catherine. Share what you were going to say.
I was just going to say there are some questions that are so overdone. I'm telling you. There's some questions that if I see a message from someone I don't know on Facebook and they have just some of these, pat little questions, and keep your options open, some of those, the ones I'm talking about. I may not even answer them depending on who they are. I hate to say that, but it's important to go back and not just, like you were saying, Christina, you have to make it your own. You can't everybody just can't read the same book and ask the same questions and follow the same, because we all just sound like a bunch of idiot robots out there, and nobody's really listening to the answers either. That's the other good point. You have to listen to the answers and be interested and make notes and remember these people, because if you're on the internet, you're gonna talk to a lot of people, and so if you're having more than a surface conversation with someone, you may want to start taking some notes so that you can keep up with people, because there's a lot. You're going to talk to a lot of people, and it's going to be, at least for me, I don't know, maybe it's just my memory, but it helps me to keep notes and so that I can remember conversations I've had. And the other thing is that BG, what you said about asking yourself questions, I think that's so important, because, and I do that a lot. Matter of fact, I did that the other day, probably for about 3 hours, because I got upset about something, and it was unusual for me to get, first of all, that upset about pretty much anything, and secondly, it was just one of those situations where I was triggered in such a way that instead of responding or reacting to that other person, I went into a question session with myself, for several hours. I just kept asking myself, what is it about this that's triggering me? Why did that happen that way? How could I have handled that situation better? And what about the way I handled it upset me, because I realized in the end I was more upset about the way I handled it, because I did step back and not do anything, but it wasn't a situation where that was necessarily appropriate. I needed to step into my power at that moment, not in an aggressive way by any means, but just in a good communication way. So asking yourself questions, especially if you're trying to lead people, before you just go out there and start laying down the law, you need to ask yourself a lot of questions. And when situations come up that trigger you, you're the first one you need to deal with those questions before you start asking them a bunch.
That's a really good point, too, about asking your questions and how you can sort of do a self-assessment and help grow yourself. When maybe you might have, again, started off wrong. You or maybe wrong is the wrong answer, but maybe you've started off, you've set the tone of your team in one direction, and you've realized that your team is plateaued, and you're kind of doing a self-assessment to see what you can do to move your team forward, or to move your business forward. If you have a traditional business, one way to do that is asking yourself those questions, because and if you're honestly answering those questions, you can certainly identify with where to start the conversation with your employees or with your team to help sort of move your business forward. I think that was a really good point. I kind of wanted to also throw out there that I lost my train of thought. We're doing that a lot today. I lost my train of thought in the middle of it. It was about, I don't remember, but when I remember it, I'll say it again.
You brought up a really valid point also, and being open to asking the questions, emphasizes this in the chapter. We as leaders may not get the answers that we thought, and we have to be open to say, you know what, there might be a better one that's going to come along because I'm allowing them the opportunity. We can't and then some people think, well, get straight to the point, don't ask the questions because I already have my motive in place and I want it to go a certain way. That's the wrong way to see things, because then you're stuck. You're dead. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care who you are, you're always learning from someone else. Don't think that you have all the solutions. And I got a really good statement that I've been making, especially this past week, that the most successful people in the world are never afraid to stop learning. They're always learning from someone else. So does that mean it has to be somebody that's a higher rank or a higher level of thinking than them? No. Who can we learn from more than anybody? And I say this all the time, is children, because children, their minds aren't cluttered. They're more open. They see things with more clarity than we do, actually, many times. They just don't have the experiences that kind of mold their opinions. But we have to be open, and that goes the same way being a leader of a team or managing in a business or an owner or whatever. You have to be open to that process.
I remember what I was going to say. And that is, and it's actually, Danielle, I'm telling you, we're here today. So when you are in that situation and you're asking questions, particularly I found online, even this week, it's happened to me several times, by asking so many questions about other people, I'm able to keep the conversation going over long periods of time, even days with people, to help sort of build that rapport, because you just get a feeling about people. And guess what? Almost, I would say a good 30% of the time, people are like, they get to a point where they're like, dang, we're talking about me so much. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you build your business? And if you are particularly a person who is very uncomfortable asking for the sale, this is a perfect way to get it to come up naturally, and you don't even have to initiate it. You feel me, Danielle?
I do. I'm going to, sorry guys, we're hogging the call here. We're having this sister mance thing going. But yes, I do, because that's the same for myself. I get people where they're like, well, can you stop talking about me? I want to know who the heck you are. What do you do? And they ask it just like, you're texting, but you can hear the energy in their question, because they're like, dang, she knows everything about me. I don't know a thing about her. I can't help myself. I need to know who you are. And that's exactly, if you're somebody that's a little timid and shy, just be good at doing form. We talk about it. Form is what I use all the time. I've been using it for years. It's the most effective way to really ask people: family, occupation, recreation, motivation. In one of those, it's also going to bring you out of your shell, because you're going to find a commonality 99.999% of the time. You will find in their hot buttons something that helps you grow also. And you'll become more effective. The more you learn that technique, your ability to ask the right kind of questions. And don't ask just one question. You ask with a series of questions that further engages them. And many times through that, you will naturally, like you just said, Christina, you will lead them on the path towards what you want, because you've already established many times that you have something, and it's in your belief system. You will establish that you already have something that they can use. You don't want to presume. And then if you don't, this is where the other part of being an effective listener comes in, is that if you don't, be gracious enough to always be learning from other people, that you can refer them to someone else. That will win you more people. I have referred so many people because of that effective listening and asking questions, where I really honestly could not feel their need, but what happens? They reciprocate. The law of reciprocation comes back to you as well through this process, where they will find somebody that they're a friend of, and the little light bulb goes off because you left such an impression with them by how you paid attention to them. Exactly back to winning friends and influencing people. And what Dale Carnegie talks about, that he was considered a great conversationalist. Was it because he sat there talking the whole time? No, it was because he knew how to ask the questions to make that person think, man, this guy is awesome. Hey, you know what? I have a friend that I was talking to the other day. I think that you could really benefit from what they have. Let me connect the two of you. I'll jump off here because I could go on for an hour on this kind of stuff.
Knuckles, Danielle, knuckles. And not only that, when they have a question later on down the line, even though you've connected them with someone else and they have a question later on down the line, so you've built authority with them now, because now you're a trusted resource. So they're going to come back to you and ask you a question, even when it has nothing. You guys probably haven't even talked in weeks, months, but they trust you already, and you've become an authority in their minds. So I'm going to shut up, too, because I feel like I'm talking a lot, too.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. You guys are adding some really great thoughts to this conversation, and I think a lot of people have these questions in their mind: is how do I do this? How do I connect with people on a deeper way? And you guys are so good at asking questions. I've seen both of you just ask questions out there and start conversations out of nowhere, and I think that is a powerful thing. I mean, I know you guys realize that, but I don't think most people realize how powerful that is to be able to be the one that stimulates a conversation and continues to keep that conversation going. Because, like me and a lot of other people who, were more of an introvert as they were growing up, is that, keeping that conversation going is more difficult if you don't know what to ask next. What are some suggestions for people as far as learning to be better at asking the right kind of questions? I mean, do you guys have resources, Danielle? I mean, you keep mentioning the form thing.
Yeah.
What resources can you offer for people?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is, okay, let's take the first, family. Oh, so do you have a family? That's a basic question. And some people will, you'll get as general as a yes. And you're like, okay, I got to pull some teeth. And so you pull the teeth. Oh, really? So do I. I offer just tidbits at times because I recognize I need to encourage the conversation. Some people will have a fence up so high that they think, okay, is this a scam person, or are they trying to find out because they're going to do something to me? You're going to have that group of personalities, but you're also going to have a group that's going to say, yeah, I have a husband and kids, and na-na-na-na. Oh, how old are they? How long have you been married? Another one that goes into the M's and the R's, because most of us, if we're parents, our children are a huge motivation. So one of the ways I redirect and I can get two birds with one stone is, oh, what kind of activities do you enjoy doing with your children? Because I've established that their kids are very important to them. Tells me a lot about their personality, because if I have this wonderful lady I'm learning with, and she has a condition that's very challenging, and one of her children has the same condition, and she shared that she's opened up to me so much. It's very difficult for her to do this, but she is now sharing with me and telling me things I don't think that most parents would do. She was telling me yesterday that her son and her have a ritual of throwing eggs at trees. Now, that's kind of one of the oddballest things I've ever heard, but when she explained why and how much it affected her, and I drew on that to really pull her out of just how deep an emotion it is, she can't wait to talk to me now. She wants to talk about all kinds of things. So I've established a strong relationship with that person of trust, belief, what Christina was talking about. Now she's already starting to introduce me to her friends, and she says, can I introduce you to one of my other friends? I would love her to meet you. It just naturally happens through that process. Let's take occupation. I have another gentleman I've been talking to that has been in the same job for 23 years, but he's done other things in his life, and so I might ask things as like, this is your dream job, or what would you rather do, or how long have you been in your job, what would you change about your job if you could, if you were the boss, empower them a little bit, and you get their minds thinking bigger, you know, well, if I was in control of this place. It's just those little tiny things you do that gets them out of themselves and lets them open up to you.
Hey, and Danielle, before you move off of occupation, think about it. For most people, occupation is their identity, right? So that's a natural, let me talk about me. But even though it's their identity, something I had a big aha moment that I had yesterday when I was masterminding and thinking of, and working through a challenge in my business was I have all these natural skill sets that I've learned through my education in college and through certifications and the job that I do in corporate America every day. I run from those skill sets in my personal business because I hate them so much. However, those very skill sets are some things that will absolutely help me get over the hump that I'm, you know, challenged with in my personal business. So for those of you who are looking for a sort of a higher quality, you know, more leadership type person, professionals, this is a way for you to help engage them and bring them into your business, because you can just help them talk about their business, let them talk about their occupation, identify the skill sets they have as a result of that occupation, and point them suggestively how they can leverage those skill sets to be their own boss, create their own freedom, have some time with their family.
Samantha, man, Roger just made a good point on here, and I jumped over here and I read that, and Dan, you answered. Do you answer on that, Dan? Because that was so powerful what Roger just said right now.
Yeah, go ahead and read it. Okay, I'll read it.
I'm sorry, I was jumping on there.
Go ahead.
Okay, he says, Roger said, while I wholeheartedly agree with the value of asking questions, sometimes it seems like there are exceptions. Have you ever noticed that when you're trying to communicate with a type A dominant personality or a red person, they become very impatient quickly? In those cases, I found that I'm generally I'm better off making a statement and then asking them if they agree. That way it doesn't seem that they feel threatened about losing control. And he asked if anyone's experienced that dynamic, and I love the answer that you just gave him, Dan. I'd love if you'd just jump out on that one, because that was super cool.
Yeah, I'll jump out. You know, my personality's changed. I used to have a 100% different personality than what I have right now. And, you know, I don't know if it's just age or what it is, but when I started my painting business, prior to that I was just one of the boys, you know. And then when I started my painting company, I threw this switch in my head, and it says, okay, I'm not one of the boys anymore. I don't have anybody to go to. I am the boss, you know. And I spent so many years so busy, so hammered, I didn't have time to waste. I didn't have time to screw around. And that's not so much that I looked at myself, or even now that I look at myself as a type A personality, although I'm sure a lot of people would say that I am a little bit intense sometimes. But I just got to the point where I just haven't got time for a bunch of BS. So just give me the freaking bottom line. What is it? You know? And I took command of conversations that way, not trying to be rude. It's just that, hey, I don't get to go home tonight until I get this stuff done. And I don't want to sit here and listen to a paint store salesman who would come out, and they was notorious for wanting to spend their 2 hours in their afternoon. They was killing time because they didn't have any place in the world to be. I had something I had to get done because I want to go home tonight, have supper, see my kids, and kick my feet up, take my shoes off. And so, I actually became an extremely intense person for a number of years. It's not because I wanted to be. It's just that I was molded and shaped into this box, and I had to protect my time. And so, yeah, I didn't have a lot of time for just general niceties for a long, long time. For years, I'm talking about years. I'm not talking about 2 weeks. I'm talking about years and years of my life that was, I was just, like the horse that's rode hard and put to bed wet, so to speak, and really, I mean, sometimes I felt like I was passing myself. I didn't know if I was just getting home or heading out in the morning, and literally, and so, I didn't mean to be a rude jerk to people. I just didn't have any time, and I didn't have time to sit and listen to some salesperson's rhetoric or even employees that worked for me. Is just get to the point now. So yeah, the point that Roger Lading brought out there, is you don't know what that person that you're trying to engage in conversation, what they might, you don't know what their day's been. They might have had their whole world fell apart that morning. I mean, it wasn't uncommon for me to have 2 or 3 builders call me up first thing in the morning and have a pound on my rear end, and I hadn't even started my day yet. I've already been yelled at from 3 different people, and then somebody comes bebopping along and they want to engage me in general niceties. It's like, man, I ain't got time for this crap. I know I'm kind of a blunt person sometimes in that respect, but honestly, you don't know what's going on in that other person's life. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I just, the point that Roger brought out, it's like, yeah, I 100% identify with that. And it wasn't that I was trying to be a jerk. It's just I didn't have time to screw around, and I used to actually look at my watch, and I give a person, I give you about 2 minutes, and then I don't mean to be rude, but I am out of here. I just didn't have time. So anyway, let somebody else.
To that point, you get that's a really good point, and you do get that feeling, don't you, Dan? I mean, that person gives you that feeling when you're talking with them, and I don't know. One of the things that I tend to do is really kind of turn it on myself and make fun and sort of be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling. I'm a relationship builder kind of person. So I'm sorry. What is it that I noticed that you've been online, or I've seen you in this group. What is it that you're doing to help you grow your business? And that, again, puts it back on them and allows them to kind of take over the conversation and direct it. And they quickly let you know what their frustrations are. And then you can hop back in there and just solve their frustration.
I have a really good friend. He's actually become in the last month, and he was very like that before for quite a while with me. And over a period of time, I started leaving in little nice messages. Yes, and because I was more like you as well, Dan, there was a time in my life people would tell you I was like a Luke Skywalker when I walked in the room. Boy, I had my saber out, and that light came on, and as I went down the aisle. If you didn't have the answer, if you weren't on point with me, I would look you directly like this, and if you couldn't, it was like, when you get that straight, you come back and see me. And I decided a few years ago not to be that way anymore. I have changed dramatically as well. I used to be more direct, extremely direct. And I realized I was tense all the time. I wasn't happy. I wasn't feeling good. And that is not a life either. And it's also another way that you can influence people, because this particular person that was more a personality type, he has softened up so much in the past couple of weeks, where now he goes, I don't know what kind of effect you're having on me, but he said, I'm smiling more. I feel more better now. I've calmed down a little bit. And he says, man, he goes, what the heck have you done? And I said, I just really care about people, and I meet you where you're at, and I try to understand why you're at where you're at, because I was there one time too. It's that relationship. I know how you feel. I have felt that same way, but what I found out, the feel, felt, found, it works on those type of people also to bring them around. We can influence anybody. It's just being effective, again, back to being able to ask the right questions, listening. I'm sure, Dan, that if more people had related to you from that point of view at a different time, you may have only still given them the same 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes would have had more value instead of direct and harsh or abrupt. They would have had more kindness to them, and over time, I guarantee you, that softens you up still. I don't care who it is. It does have an effect on you.
You're the queen of it, Danielle. You're very good at that. You are.
Well, guys, this has been an awesome conversation. You know, maybe we should just do a hangout specifically on this again sometime. I think you guys could go on and on. You've given so much value today. It's been so very, very helpful, I'm sure, for many people that are watching or will be watching in the future. But we're at the top of the hour, so we need to go ahead and wrap this up. Just everybody want to kind of jump out real quick and maybe add their final thoughts, and then I'm going to mention a couple resources before we close us out. But yeah, whoever wants to jump out.
I'll jump out real quick. You know, when I was talking about asking yourself questions, I posted it on here, but the 4 steps to success. Number 1, you have to decide what you want. So you actually have to ask yourself the question, what do I want out of life? You know, point number 2, what are you willing to give up in order to get what you want? And that you have to ask yourself, okay, what kind of time? Is it television? Is it vacations? What do I have to give up in order to get what I want? Point 3 is associate with people who can help you get what you want. And point 4 is plan your work and work your plan. So point 1 and point 2 directly is you asking yourself, you know, number 1, what do I want out of life? What is my goal? And you have to actually write that down on paper so that you can study it. You know, the things, what do I want? You know, I mean, there's unlimited things out here to want, but there's a limited amount of time. So you got to zero in, what do I want? And point number 2, what am I willing to give up in order to get what I want? Because no matter what you want, you're going to have to give something up. It's going to be some time, some energy, some money. Somewhere along the line, you've got to trade, swap out what you have for what you want. And it's the law of cause and effect, you know. So anyways, that's it. I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Well, I'll just bring up to be sure and ask yourself, you know, are you doing what makes your heart sing? It goes along with what do you want. You know, are you really doing what makes your heart sing, or are you being authentic? Are you being genuine with people? Because they'll feel it if you're not. So there's really no need to try to pretend, you know. Better to find your own way to express yourself than to be using someone else's way and come off inauthentically, you know. Everybody has their own personality, so you can totally tell if a yellow is trying to use a red technique. You know, it just doesn't flow right. People could just go, oh, really? You know, they just see right through it. So just be yourself and care about people, you know, because there's a lot of people out there that need help, and maybe they don't need help, maybe they just need an ear or a shoulder or someone that understands what they're going through, you know. Every conversation doesn't have to be about business, and I think sometimes we get so excited about our businesses and so enthusiastic that we forget that people are just people, not they're not always customers or clients or future team members or whatever. So just keep it real and keep the love going. And thank you everyone for coming.
I don't know if thumb is frozen. I will just end with this great points, Dan, about knowing what your end goal is, what you're wanting. And, all four of those points were just fantastic, Dan. And Catherine, I really love what you said about authenticity. That's something that's just missing in general in life. I don't care if it's online or offline these days. People are just not authentically them. And I think that's one of the things that's helped me just build relationships in general, that people trust me because I'm just authentically me. So I think that was a fantastic point. The last point that I would make as far as, our discussion is, again, if you're someone who's not all that particular or comfortable, or even if you are, give what you wish to receive. So if you hope that, when you encounter people, they're more open, they're less, red and rushy, and they're more open and they're more communicative, then you should be that way too. If that's not naturally your personality, start to work on those things. And one way to really help you do that is to have a great profile that's full. It gives people something to bite onto until they can really get to know you. They kind of get to know you, that introduction, through your profile. So make sure your profiles are full with information, your hobbies, your interests, your passions. Yeah, you can throw in some business stuff too, but give them a little bit of a preface to who you are.
Did you have any final thoughts, Donna? Do you want to jump out? Or are you frozen? Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Real quick before we go, Christina just mentioned to me that she's got a couple of blog articles that talk about the form and asking the right questions to, help people connect with you and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Christina, is to post that in our Mindset Mastery Collective community under the resources category. And then another thing is that we've also posted in that same category a couple of things on the personality traits and colors training and that sort of thing. So if you guys want to learn more about that and how to be a more effective communicator with different types of personalities and asking the right questions, then just jump over to mindsetmasterycollective.com. That is our Google Plus community, and you can get access to those resources. Other than that, guys, like our video, like our Mindset Mastery Collective page, subscribe to our channel, share this video with anybody you think that would be helpful, jump in our community if you aren't already, and other than that, have a great day, an awesome, amazing weekend, and we'll see you again next week, same time, 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturday mornings at SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. Thanks. Bye for now.
Bye.